When my mother found out I was pregnant, she told me I was a disgrace and forced me out of the house. "You'll never be anything but a burden," she said. As I walked away, I could feel the anger stirring. "I'll make sure you regret this," I muted through gritted teeth. But what she didn't know was that my revenge would change everything. I don't even know where to begin, except to say this. I didn't deserve what she did to me. When I was 17, I got pregnant. It wasn't planned. I wasn't sleeping around. I'd been with one guy, Drew, and even though I knew we were shaky, I thought I could trust him. He ghosted me 2 weeks after I told him. Just vanished. Blocked me everywhere. So yeah, I was scared. I'd made a stupid mistake, but I was ready to face it. What I wasn't ready for was my own mother throwing me away like trash. She looked me dead in the face when I told her, arms crossed, jaw clenched like she'd been waiting her whole life for a reason to hate me. "You're a damn disgrace," she said. "Just like your father." That cut deep, because she never talked about him. He walked out when I was 8, and she always acted like she was the strong one who held everything together. But that night, I saw the truth. She hated me because I reminded her of him. "You'll never be anything but a burden. I'm done with you." Those were her last words to me as her daughter. She gave me an hour to pack. 1 hour. No conversation. No talk about options. Just pure ice. I didn't even have a coat. She threw a trash bag at me and said, "Get out." I spent that night at a friend's house, on a couch that smelled like weed and cat piss. I cried myself to sleep holding my stomach, not because of the pregnancy, but because I realized my mother didn't love me. Not really. I ended up in a shelter for teen moms in East Cleveland. The place was bleak. Staff barely kept order. Some of the girls had drug problems, and I was constantly afraid someone would steal my things. But I had a room. I had food. I had Ava. She was born 3 months later. I gave birth in a charity hospital with a volunteer nurse holding my hand. No family. No flowers. No one. For years, I lived below the poverty line. I cleaned motel rooms, flipped burgers, took overnight shifts at 24-hour diners. I kept Ava in a used stroller and wore the same jeans until they tore. I went back to school at night, got my GED. Not because I wanted to prove anything to my mother, but because I had to prove to myself that I wasn't what she said I was. I worked harder than anyone I knew. I didn't even date. My entire life was survival and Ava. I found a community college that had a daycare. Took classes, then transferred to Ohio State through a scholarship. Graphic design. Nights and weekends I worked freelance jobs, built a portfolio. By 26, I had my own little LLC. And all that time, not a single word from her. Not when Ava turned 5. Not when I graduated. Not when I launched my business. She could have found me, I never hid. She just didn't care. But I watched her. Quietly. I followed her Facebook. She still lived in the same beige house on West 116th Street. Still posted pictures with her church friends. Still called herself a community mentor for at-risk youth. That part? That stung. Because it was such a lie. She kicked her own pregnant daughter out into the street. But now she was all over social media, smiling with kids that weren't hers, acting like she was some savior. I let it simmer for years. I was too focused on survival to act. But when I finally had some stability, I started looking closer. That's when the universe handed me the match. My cousin Jenna and I had reconnected a little, just enough to exchange emails about family stuff. One day, she forwarded me a chain about some dumb birthday plans, and in it, I saw something strange. An email from my mother talking about how she was claiming Jenna's kid on her taxes. "Just until you get back on your feet," she wrote. Jenna's kid. Not her dependent. Not her legal responsibility. But there it was in writing. For 2 years. Tax fraud. It wasn't just shady, it was illegal. And it was exactly the leverage I needed. I didn't rush. I took my time. I printed everything. Emails. Posts. Photos. I gathered evidence. Built a file. And then slowly, methodically, I started poking at the threads of her life. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I wanted her to feel it all fall apart bit by bit. And believe me, it did. After I found those emails and started collecting evidence, I knew exactly where to begin. Her church. That place was everything to her. It wasn't about God, it was about image. She wore her mentor title like a crown. Led Sunday youth groups, organized charity drives, even gave talks about forgiveness and grace. All lies. But the people there adored her. So I started small. I emailed the pastor anonymously. Posed as a concerned community member. I attached the documents, emails, screenshots of her claiming Jenna's kid on her taxes. Said it didn't sit right with me that someone preaching integrity was committing fraud. I didn't sign it. I just let the seed grow. It took a few weeks, but I started to hear things from Jenna, who still lived nearby. Rumors were spreading. Church staff started asking quiet questions. Then came the audit. Apparently, someone tipped off the IRS.
Not me.
Not directly. I made sure it came from a third-party address and mailed it with no fingerprints, literally. Wore gloves, printed everything from a library. Mailed it from a small town an hour away. Paranoid, maybe, but I didn't want anything traced back. That's when things got serious. She was pulled aside at work. Then at church. People started keeping their distance. No one confronted her outright, but the whispering began. The youth group leadership quietly changed hands. She stopped appearing in photos. They took down the article on the church site calling her Mentor of the Year. I waited.
Watched.
And then I made my move. I wrote her a letter. Not from a lawyer, just from me. Handwritten. Real. Honest. And brutal. I told her exactly what she did to me. Word for word. You threw me away. I begged you, and you threw me into the street pregnant with nothing. You never called. Never asked if your granddaughter was alive. You went on pretending to be a saint while I was sleeping in a shelter and eating off food stamps. I told her I knew about the tax fraud. Told her I sent it out. That her lies were crumbling. And I ended it with the one sentence I had waited 10 years to write. I told you I'd make sure you regret it. A week later, Jenna called me. My mother had a breakdown. Couldn't show her face at church. Started calling family, trying to spin the story, claiming I was ungrateful, bitter, unstable. But nobody bought it. Not anymore. The audit froze her refund. Her job put her on administrative leave. The church quietly cut ties. And yet, the revenge didn't feel complete. Not yet. Because the world might see her cracks. But she still didn't know what it felt like to be me. To lose everything. To be abandoned, powerless, forgotten. So I decided there would be one more step. Something personal. Something she couldn't erase or lie her way out of. And that was when I found out who her new godchild really was. Her new godchild was a girl named Maya. 15 years old. Pretty, soft-spoken, full of that eager-to-please energy I used to have. I found her Instagram through the church's youth group page. Lots of smiling selfies with my mother. Captions like, "My second mom, red heart," and "Blessed to have this woman in my life." I stared at those photos for a long time. At first, I felt numb. Then angry. Not at the girl. Never at her. But at my mother. For playing this game again. Finding another vulnerable child and building herself up as the hero. I started doing some digging. Maya was in foster care. Parents lost custody, drugs, from what I could gather. The church connected her to my mother last year. She'd been spending weekends at her house, helping out with events, shadowing her at work. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. One of Maya's posts had a video. Just 10 seconds. They were baking cookies. My mother, turned to the camera and said, "Every young girl needs someone to believe in her." I promised Maya I'd never give up on her. I watched that clip 10 times. Then 20. I remembered being 8, sitting on the floor crying after I failed a math test. And her standing over me, saying, "I'm not raising a weak daughter. Get up and fix it." I remembered being 13, getting my first period and bleeding through my shorts at school. And her yelling at me that night, "Why didn't you plan ahead? Why do you always embarrass me?" I remembered standing in her kitchen, telling her I was pregnant, and watching her eyes go dead. And now she was someone's savior? That's when I knew what I had to do. I didn't want to hurt Maya. That girl had been through enough. But she deserved the truth. Someone had to warn her. So I reached out. I sent a message from a burner account. Told her I was someone who knew her mentor from a long time ago. Asked if she'd ever heard about a girl named Ava. She didn't answer at first. Then 2 days later, she wrote back. No, who's Ava? I told her. Ava is her granddaughter. I didn't lie. I didn't twist anything. I just told Maya the truth. I sent her photos, screenshots of messages, a copy of my letter. I told her how my mother left me, what she said, what she did, how she built her new image on the back of a lie. I didn't expect Maya to believe me, but she did. She didn't say much. Just, I'm sorry. I didn't know. A week later, she moved out of my mother's house, back to her foster placement. I don't know what she told the church, but something must have hit, because that's when things got ugly for my mother. Publicly. There was a community Facebook post, one of those long, angry ones from a parent. Accused my mom of manipulating vulnerable girls, of using her role to boost her own image while hiding her past. People started commenting.
Sharing.
I stayed out of it, but I watched it spread. Within a month, she was done. Her job let her go. The church cut all ties. Her friends stopped answering her calls. The woman who once said I was a burden now sat alone in that beige house with peeling paint and no one left to lie to. And the best part? She still didn't know it was me who pulled every string. It had been 10 years since she kicked me out. 10 years since I stood under that busted streetlight with snow in my shoes and told myself I'd make her regret it. And now I had. Her life was in ruins. She was out of work. The church shut its doors on her. The community she spent years fooling now whispered behind her back. Some friends even posted vague comments online, things like, "You never really know someone," and "I feel so stupid for trusting her." She took down her Facebook. Stopped showing her face anywhere. But I wasn't finished. Not until she knew the full truth. So I drove to that old beige house on West 116th, same rusted mailbox. Same cracked walkway. I sat in my car for a while. Ava was with a sitter. I stared at the house where I once begged for shelter, where I cried on the floor wondering why my own mother hated me so much. And then I knocked on the door. She opened it, slower than I remembered. She looked older. Not just in the face, something deeper. Like life had finally caught up to her.
She froze when she saw me.
Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stepped forward. "I just wanted you to see my face when I tell you this," I said. "You did this to yourself." Her eyes welled up. She looked at me like I was a ghost. "I lost everything," she whispered. I nodded.
"Yeah, so did I. But I built something." "You?" "You destroyed what little you had left." She reached for the doorframe like she might fall. "I was scared," she said. "Back then. I didn't know what to do. You reminded me so much of your father and—" "No," I said, stepping closer. "You don't get to rewrite history. You threw me out. Pregnant. 17. In the snow. And you never looked back. You wanted me to disappear. But I didn't. I raised Ava on my own. I built a life. A real one. And every time you smiled for a camera and called yourself a mentor, I made sure someone saw what you really were." She started crying then. Quiet, breathless sobs. She looked small. "I thought you'd forgive me eventually," she said. I looked her dead in the eyes. "I did forgive you. But I never forgot. And I never let you lie your way out of what you did." I turned to walk away. But before I reached the car, I said one more thing, loud enough for her to hear. "Ava asked about you once." I told her the truth. That her grandmother chose her image over her own blood. And she doesn't miss you. Not even a little. Then I left. I didn't look back. She'll live the rest of her life, knowing the one person she wanted to erase became the only one who truly knew her, and who made sure the world saw her for what she really was. That was my revenge.
and it was everything I needed.